Bins on fire inside the courtyard of the Chinese consulate in Houston. Witnesses said they could smell paper being burned, the first whiff of a bigger story. Because as firefighters arrived, Chinese state media started reporting the US had ordered the consulate to be closed. It's a political provocation unilaterally launched by the US side, which seriously violates international law, basic norms governing international relations, and the bilateral consular agreements between China and the US. China strongly condemns such an outrageous move. In a statement, the US State Department said it would not tolerate violations of our sovereignty and intimidation of our people. The US directive comes a day after 2 Chinese nationals were charged with hacking. Said to be working as spies, they're accused, among other things, of trying to steal coronavirus vaccine research.
The campaign targeted intellectual property and confidential business information held by the private sector, including COVID-19 related treatment, testing, and vaccines.
Back in Houston, this was as close as firefighters could get to the consulate. They weren't allowed in. Chinese officials have 72 hours to get out, with China threatening to close US consulates in response. The fire may have been put out, but the US-China relationship is smouldering as much as ever.
Let's speak to Tyson Barker from the Truman National Security Project here in Berlin. Tyson, what more do we know about why the US has taken this step?
Well, clearly this is an escalatory step on the part of the U.S., and we don't exactly know the reasons. The U.S. has not given exact reasons. What we do know is the kind of atmospherics around this. The U.S. has unsealed an indictment, the Department of Justice, on Tuesday, involving 2 Chinese hackers that have been infiltrating research centers looking into COVID-19 vaccines. As you mentioned earlier, Mike Pompeo is doing a trip through Europe. He was just in the UK, pushing for other countries to ban Huawei. So the tension in the relationship is growing.
Where does this leave diplomatic ties between the 2 countries?
They're extremely fraught right now. I think when you look at the kind of global landscape, China and the United States are crisscrossing allies, partners, pushing for partners to take a tougher stance vis-a-vis the other. The Chinese have become quite aggressive here in Europe, for example, with what they're calling a wolf warrior diplomacy, pushing partners to allow Huawei, for example, to participate in 5G infrastructure development in places like Germany. It's quite tense, and in the United States, this idea of a great power conflict with China has credibility, is getting credence in a bipartisan way. There's a lot of support for this in Congress as well.
And do you think that the Trump administration is also hardening its position on China, given that we are in an election year?
Well, there is obviously a political overtone to this. The Trump campaign has made a point of saying that President Trump is tougher on China, that Joe Biden is soft on China, that he was supportive of, integrating China into the global trade system, for example, in the 90s and early 2000s, that he has a record that doesn't match well with Trump's record. It's not clear that that's going to work. The rhetoric coming out of the Biden campaign is very similar to the Trump rhetoric, and a lot of the support for toughening sanctions measures in the Senate and House, which are moving right now, banning TikTok, for example, on federal devices. That's all coming from the Democrats as well as the Republicans.
Tyson Barker from the Truman National Security Project in Berlin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.